Everyone's got their favorite wrestling match. For me, personally, it's when Bret the Hitman Hart squared off against the Intercontinental Champion Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig at SummerSlam 1991. Maybe around 1989, when I got over my early bout of Hulkamania, Bret Hart became my absolute favorite. I honestly don't even know why. Maybe he just seemed cool when other guys were yelling. He just hung back in those cool wraparound sunglasses. Getting back on track. To see my fave that truly felt like my fave because the whole world didn't love him claim the Intercontinental title, I went through the roof. Yeah, when the right talent meets the right moment with the right stakes, it can be magical. It's a shame that it can't all be like that because some matches seem like they're doomed to failure. I'm Senior Siete for 7 Wrestling. Let's take a look at 7 cursed WWE matches. Now, before we get into this, we appreciate your support, so if you enjoy this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and jackknife powerbomb that notification bell. Number 1. Old Folks Robe. Retirement matches have kind of become a punchline in professional wrestling. The setup makes total sense. If I can't beat you, I will never wrestle again. The stakes couldn't possibly be any higher. Problem is, once the ticket money has been collected, there's not much of a motivation to stay retired, except integrity. But come on, pro wrestling has its roots in carny culture. Ric Flair has lost several retirement matches. Mick Foley said he'd never prostitute himself and come back after losing to Triple H at Hell in a Cell. Then he did this, and this, and this. Shawn Michaels seemed to be the exception to the rule. The Heartbreak Kid had participated in an absolutely amazing match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25, and he had been looking for a way to hang up the boots for good. So, the duo ran it back at WrestleMania 26 with the stipulation being that if Michaels lost, he'd retire. The match was given the main event slot over a Batista vs. John Cena WWE title match and a Chris Jericho vs. Edge World title match, and they delivered again. Maybe a half step below the previous year, but still a great match. When it was all said and done, the Dead Man dropped the showstopper with a Tombstone Piledriver, extending his WrestleMania streak and sending Michaels on his way to retirement. And to his credit, Shawn stood by the stipulation. Over the years, the company did everything they could to coax HBK out of retirement, even setting up a no-brainer of a bout between Michaels and the student Daniel Bryan after Michaels cost Bryan the world title at the 2013 Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. But Michaels always turned them down cold. That is, until Saudi Arabia reportedly came a-calling with the promise of a $3 million payday to compete at Crown Jewel 2018. And hey, I'm not judging. I would punch myself in the face for that kind of money. The bout would have Shawn Michaels teaming up with his DX buddy Triple H to face the Brothers of Destruction team of Kane and The Undertaker. On his 6 Feet Under podcast, The Undertaker would describe how they talked Shawn Michaels into putting on the chaps one more time. I said, dude, you can do this in your sleep. Come on. It's you and Triple H against, how many years of ring time? We could all do this in our sleep. This is gonna be easy money. Easy money indeed. And who knew $3 million could be spent on the hottest of hot garbage? This match is a complete train wreck. Triple H tore his pectoral muscle, Kane lost his mask. The rest of the action was like watching old people make love, meaning it was slow and sloppy. Weirdly, Shawn Michaels, the guy who hadn't wrestled in a long time, easily put on the best performance. Taker would describe the vibe backstage after the bout as, one, we're all pissed. Everybody's pissed. Shawn is pissed because he came out of retirement. Paul's pissed. He tore his because he had a WrestleMania match that year, and he tears his pec. Glenn loses his mask, I lose my pride, but yeah, it was awful. Shawn Michaels claims that the Crown Jewel match lives in a separate world from his WWE career, and wouldn't it be nice if we could all just take those kinds of mulligans on our career mistakes? Number 2, De-Evolution. Ever been to a WWE house show? They can be kind of fun. If you're unfamiliar with that vernacular, a house show is basically a WWE event that isn't filmed for television. The matches aren't as good technically because they don't want to take too many risks, but the talent tends to have more fun and interacts with the audience. And by their very nature, that being a performance for a very limited crowd, it's extremely rare that anything major happens. Every once in a while, you'll get a title change, like when AJ Styles won the US belt from Kevin Owens at Madison Square Garden back in 2017, but for the most part, what happens there doesn't really matter in the long run. And not much was expected when the WWE rolled into the pretzel capital of the world, Reading, Pennsylvania, on March 1st, 2003. Card was unspectacular, with Triple H defeating Booker T in the main event. However, it was an undercard tag match that made headlines. In the bout, the Dudley Boys would square off against a team made up of Evolution members Randy Orton and Batista. Now, people get hurt, that's pro wrestling, but in this disaster, 3 of the 4 combatants would leave with serious injuries. And there are various different accounts as to what happened. Batista claims that Bubba immediately charged him in the ring and ran into the big man's arm and dislocated his tricep, while Bubba claims that he pie-faced Batista and Batista tore his tricep, swinging back at him. Then, the Dudleys would perform a double flapjack on Orton. During this, Randy's foot ended up behind Bubba's back, thus injuring Orton's foot and Bubba's back. Batista would discuss this incident in his 2008 book Batista Unleashed in a section titled Bubba Dudley is an Asshole. When it ended, they hauled Randy out in an ambulance. I followed in a car. Even Bubba Dudley got hurt, injuring his back, or so he claimed. See, the thing that really drives me crazy about that night was that Bubba Dudley bitched out Randy while he was being put into the ambulance. Bubba started yelling at Randy, claiming that because he landed on Randy's foot, he had hurt his back. Excuse me? Because Bubba broke Randy's foot by landing on it and crushing it. Bubba's back hurt and it was Randy's fault? I like to think that during all of this, Devon was just standing back, grabbing some catering and being like, friggin' dummies. Number 3, in the doghouse. There are some horrifically terrible angles that happened during the Attitude Era. You've got Beaver Cleavage going from being an incestuous 50s sitcom star to fun-loving Chaz, the alleged girlfriend beater. Mark Henry was a sex addict. Kyantai kidnapped Val Venus and attempted to chop off his penis before John Wade Bobbitt snuck in and turned off the lights so Venus could escape. Yeah, so dumb. And that's not even counting the time the Big Boss Man tried to kill off the Hell in the Cell gimmick for good. It started at WrestleMania 15, where he and The Undertaker squared off in a snoozer of a cell match. Maybe the worst ever if you're not counting the later iterations where the matches would just stop due to stupid shenanigans. We'd be left with the visual of the Boss Man being hung from the structure as it was lifted back into the air. Fortunately, this on-air death was only temporary. Next up, we'd see the Boss Man torment Al Snow, who had switched out his trademark mannequin head, known as Head, for a tiny chihuahua known as Pepper. Over the course of this feud, Boss Man would kidnap Al's little buddy and threaten to harm him if Snow didn't grant him a hardcore title match. All of this led to Snow meeting up with the Boss Man to retrieve Pepper, only to learn that the food he was being served was in fact his beloved chihuahua. Shakespeare, it ain't. All of this would lead to the Kennel from Hell match that took place at Unforgiven 1999, which consisted of a regular steel cage around the ring and the Hell in the Cell structure on top of that. Get this, roaming around the ringside area between the two cages would be packs of vicious Rottweiler dogs, just waiting to tear the faces off of anybody who comes close. The only way to win this diabolical match would be to escape both cages. Holy crap! I don't get too excited for Big Boss Man matches, but that sounds amazing. But here's the thing with dogs. You can't just let wild packs of them run around and attack people. Al Snow made the point several times that they needed to be trained dogs who would react to verbal commands of a trainer who was standing in the ringside area. Instead, they got untrained dogs that were on leashes that were held by their owners. Dogs who spent the majority of the match peeing, pooping, and making amore with each other. In an interview with Wrestling Shoot Interviews, Snow would say, "I found out they had just reached out to a veterinarian clinic that day and got a list of owners who had Rottweilers, and one of them had some obedience training. And lo and behold, it was a shitball of a match. Why? Because you literally built the entire crux of the match around these animals that you couldn't utilize because they were urinating, fornicating, and defecating so much you couldn't even show them on TV, to where two owners were exchanging phone numbers for puppy rights." Oh well, so the match was terrible, but at least the angle leading up to it was incredibly stupid. Number 4. Royal Mess. We all had a good feel for what WrestleMania 40 was going to look like when Survivor Series 2023 came to an end. Cody Rhodes was riding high, clearly ready to take on Roman Reigns for the unified World Heavyweight All-Everything All-at-Once Championship. But right before the show cut off the air, the song Cult of Personality blared out over the capacity crowd in Chicago and everything changed. As CM Punk came out to a thunderous ovation, we had to reevaluate everything we thought we knew about the next couple of months. After some serious consideration, it seemed like Seth Rollins was going to get the nod to face Punk at Mania, and that Cody could still have his date with Reigns to hopefully finish the damn story. Then, The Rock showed up. It was on the January 1st, 2024 episode of Monday Night Raw that we were treated to the usual Rock appearance. It was your run-of-the-mill Rock running down a mid-card guy, in this case Jinder Mahal, and to be honest, it was kind of boring. That is, until he was leaving and he asked if he should have dinner at the head of the table, this being an unmistakable shot at Roman Reigns. Now, WWE had flirted with the idea of these two squaring off for years, but this was the first time it had been spoken about on WWE programming. Well, now, we didn't know what to expect as we headed into the Rumble. The match itself was very boring, and it all came down to Cody squaring off against Punk, with Cody picking up the somewhat surprising win. I say somewhat because it felt like we were going to finally get to Rock versus Reigns, and Cody picking Rollins as opponent would make no sense, because Roman had screwed Cody over the year before, and the whole point of finishing the story was for Cody to win the same WWE title that his father had taken from him, and that lineage was tied to the title that Roman held. And sure enough, as the show went off the air, Cody made it clear as day that he would be challenging Roman Reigns. Okay, so it looked like we were going to get Cody versus Reigns on night 2, and Punk would win the Elimination Chamber to earn a shot at Seth Rollins on night 1. Now, some of the entries on this list are here because of injury, some because of boneheaded booking decisions, and this one's here for both. We'd learned quickly that Punk had suffered a torn tricep during the match and wouldn't be back in time for Mania. Add to that the fact that The Rock would eventually decide that he did want to in fact face Reigns in the main event. And because The Rock is The Rock, he gets to do whatever he wants. So the plan was for Cody to simply hand over the Mania shot to The Rock for reasons. Fans didn't buy it one bit. We got the "we want Cody" movement, everything got shuffled around, and in the end, Cody got to finish the story, and The Rock got to invent one of the greatest heel characters of the modern era, the final boss. But why have Cody win the match in the first place? If there was uncertainty about The Rock's involvement at Mania, why not have Punk win the match, then have Cody earn the spot down the line if The Rock wasn't going to be able to make it? And how could they have a Royal Rumble without a Kofi Kingston amazing save moment, although, considering he had screwed that up in both 2022 and 2023, maybe that was for the best. Number 5. Exit Strategy. Goldberg was at his absolute best when he was just a silent killing machine. Intense walk backstage, fireworks, ring the bell, spear, jackhammer, lather, rinse, repeat. I like to use the term force of nature when it comes to someone like him. They aren't good, they aren't bad, they just are. Stay out of their way. Kind of like Asuka back at her NXT days. I don't think Goldberg was ever involved in what we'd call a traditional storyline until after he won the world title from Hulk Hogan on Nitro. You can't do that forever. Once he had to start talking, having interactions with other talent, selling more for other talent, the bloom was off the rose a little bit, and they never quite got it back. This wasn't helped when Goldberg joined the WWE in 2002, and The Rock absolutely outclassed him in every way during his debut. And that's not really Goldberg's fault. When The Rock figures things out like he did with his Hollywood Rock character, it's really tough for anyone to go toe-to-toe with him. The WWE would try to enhance his character by doing things like having him in comedy segments with Goldust. It just wasn't doing him any favors. But there was one shining moment where it looked like the Goldberg experiment was going to work out. At SummerSlam of that year, Triple H would defend the World Heavyweight title in an Elimination Chamber match against Goldberg, Kevin Nash, Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels, and Randy Orton. And it did not get off to a great start, with Goldberg wiping out during his entrance, but he more than made up for it by absolutely mowing down Randy Orton, Shawn Michaels, and Chris Jericho in quick succession. and the WWE audience was absolutely on fire for him. JR would describe Goldberg's efforts as being like salts through a widowed woman. Now, Google tells me that means something that goes swiftly through your digestive system, but geez, what the hell, JR? Come on, man. Leave those analogies back in the 1800s. Now, all that was left for Triple H to come out of his pod, get squished by Goldberg, and the place would burst into flames, but nah. Triple H bonked him with a sledgehammer and pinned him for the 1, 2, 3. Oh, speaking of cursed, biker shorts Triple H? Definitely cursed. We learned that Triple H was injured, hence his unique attire, and that they wanted to hold off on putting the title on Goldberg until Triple H could give him a longer match, because that's what Goldberg's known for, long matches. Yeah, but by then it was too late. By the time the WrestleMania season rolled around, it was clear that it just wasn't working out. The company was building towards a one-on-one match between Goldberg and Brock Lesnar, which usually would be a very interesting proposition, but the WWE had already used all of Goldberg's contractually obligated dates, so he never showed up to promote the match outside of helping Eddie Guerrero win the title at No Way Out. So it was on Lesnar and the special guest referee Steve Austin to promote the match, which is dumb. Why would I go out of my way to piss off the special referee in my big WrestleMania match? So we all expected the next big thing to take out Goldberg in short order. But a funny thing happened on the way to MSG. Shortly before WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar made the very unique decision that he wanted to leave the company to try to become an NFL football player. Now, the WrestleMania crowd is faced with a bout between two men who clearly don't want to be there, and it got ugly. Every move, every pose, every second was met with thunderous boos. In fact, the only time the crowd cheered was when Steve Austin was involved. We'd hear, "You sold out," "Na na na na, na 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 na, hey hey, goodbye." Was that the right amount of na 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 nas? "This match sucks." You get the picture. Maybe one of the best examples ever of a crowd taking over a match. And we all assumed Lesnar was going to win because Goldberg was leaving, but now with them both leaving, they just put Goldberg over because he was the good guy. Once this train wreck was mercifully finished, Austin stunned both of them and sent them on their merry way. Shockingly, this one would get a happy ending, with Lesnar and Goldberg being able to run it back 13 years later and doing a pretty damn good job of it at WrestleMania 33. Number 6. Tough Shit. WWE Tough Enough has gone through many iterations over the years. It started as an MTV reality series where no-names were trained to be pro wrestlers. This provided us with winners like YouTube star Maven, underrated goddess Nydia, Linda Miles, Jackie Gaeta, Matt Capitelli, and Johnny Nitro, Mundo, Impact, etc. Not a great track record for creating stars, only one of them would go on to make a good name for themselves in the business, but hey, I can't name a single person who's ever won The Voice. From there, we would see other interactions, including a version that existed exclusively on SmackDown, which is responsible for bringing The Miz into our lives. They launched a reality TV season around Steve Austin for the 5th go-round. This season featured a future Funkadactyl, as well as Matt Cross. Quick aside, I saw Matt Cross when he used to be known as M-Dog20 back in his CZW days, and I thought this kid was going to be the next big thing. I may have been a bit off with that prediction. Talented guy, but I thought he was going to be the next Rey Mysterio. The 6th season was a mix of reality TV and live competitions. This group was probably the best to date, with Chelsea Green, Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville, and Velveteen Dream being among the competitors. The purpose of this series was threefold. Obviously, to create a TV program that people enjoyed watching, to potentially find and develop new WWE superstars, and to show the world that you can call wrestling fake all day and all night, but it is hard to do and it hurts like hell. And Tough Enough did a great job of showing how strenuous being a professional wrestler is. But something that's hard to get across in a reality show is that it's not just knowing how to do the moves, it's knowing when to do the moves. You can know how to take all the bumps and perform all the maneuvers in the world, but learning how to put together a match is something else entirely. We'd all learned this the hard way on the July 8th, 2002 episode of Monday Night Raw, where hardcore champion Bradshaw and Trish Stratus would square off against Tough Enough Season 2 winner Jackie Gaeta and Tough Enough Season 1 runner-up Chris Nowitzki. What we're about to describe is often considered to be the worst Monday Night Raw match in the show's illustrious 30-plus year history. Before the match, JR makes it a point to call out that Nowitzki and Gaeta are very green, and they're gonna make some mistakes. We just didn't know how right JR was gonna be. Things start off okay with Stratus and Gate exchanging some blows, and then Trish does some kind of attempted springboard drop toe hold thing. Maybe Jackie was supposed to flapjack Trish onto the ropes, I guess. Yeah, we started this by talking about Tough Enough, but also, it's not like Trish was some seasoned veteran at this point. She barely had a year of full-time in-ring competition under her belt at this point. Nowitzki and Bradshaw would exchange blows for a bit, then they'd up and leave. Consider them lucky for how bad this got. Trish and Jackie would brawl for a bit before Trish would attempt to hit Gator with a top rope bulldog. Wow. Well, it was definitely an attempt. The crowd booed, and WWE crowds in this era were not known to boo sexy women that often. Trish would put us out of our misery and pin Jackie shortly afterwards. On an episode of Café du Rene, former WWE superstar Rene Dupree would say, "That was brutal." And then it really exposed Jackie Gata for not being ready, obviously, right? But it also exposed Trish and Bradshaw for not being able to control a situation like that. Because they try to portray Trish like this, like she became a good hand, but she's definitely not a ring general. Sorry. She's not like a Molly Holly or a Jazz, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's when Jackie Gata got sent. She got sent back to developmental. Although in their defense, it's possible that this entire show might have been cursed, because in the main event, number 7, brace yourself. As I was saying, the main event would feature a 10-man tag team match featuring Booker T, Goldust, Bubba Dudley, who's apparently an asshole, Spike Dudley, and Rob Van Dam squaring off against X-Pac, The Big Show, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and a guy returning from a bicep injury, Kevin Nash. Now, Kevin didn't think he'd be working that night, but as any indie wrestler will tell you, first rule of professional wrestling is to always bring your gear, even if you're not booked. Fortunately, Kevin's good buddy Disco Inferno was able to go to his house and send him his stuff. Unfortunately, in the rush, Disco neglected to include Chekhov's knee brace. In other news, it was reported that Shawn X-Pac Waltman was in the hospital that morning and doesn't remember how he got there. Yikes. Now, before we got to the actual match, it's important to know where WWE storylines were at this point. The NWO was trying to rebuild itself after absolutely imploding shortly after arriving in the company. Hogan was more valuable as a good guy, so he quickly started donning the red and yellow again, and Scott Hall was released after participating in the antics that took place on the famous plane ride from hell, that being an international flight where several wrestlers got intoxicated and all Hades broke out. The newer World Order was a hodgepodge of classic NWO members like Kevin Nash, Big Show, and X-Pac, Clique-adjacent buddies like Shawn Michaels, and former NWO members' brothers like Booker T. Heading into the Vengeance pay-per-view, they were trying to recruit then babyface Triple H, seeing as he fit into that former Clique member category. Now, the way the match was scheduled to go is that Kevin Nash would get tagged in and would absolutely wreck the good guys, ending the match with a jackknife powerbomb on Booker T, the hope being that this would remind fans of what an ass-kicker Nash was capable of being, reminiscent of his appearance in the 1994 Royal Rumble where he eliminated like 40 dudes. This would all lead to Triple H rejecting the NWO at Vengeance and Nash and Hunter squaring off at SummerSlam. That is, of course, not what happened. Late in the match, Nash would tag in and prepare to clean house. He'd meet Booker T with a big boot, then turn to the babyface corner to bash all of their heads in when he would tear his quad. If only he had a knee brace. The match broke down as the other wrestlers tried to piece things back together, but it was clear that Nash was in terrible shape. He wouldn't wrestle for the WWE again for another 9 months. Sean Waltman, who you may remember started the day mysteriously in a hospital, was sent home after the match and would never wrestle for the company again. WWE creative would have to be majorly shuffled. The Will Hunter join the NWO angle was changed to Will Hunter and Shawn revive DX. That eventually led to Hunter turning heel, Shawn coming out of retirement, and Shawn going on to have a second run with the company that is arguably better than his legendary first. Well, there's our list. Did we forget any other cursed WWE matches? If so, please leave them in the comments section below. Also, if you enjoyed this, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and F5 that notification bell. Till next time, I'm Senior Siete for 7 Wrestling saying bye-bye.